Oh, it's a goal. Who got the assist? Who got the assist?
Hello. So, recriminations, anger, regret. But enough about my first day at work. Kidding, everyone was absolutely lovely. We're here once again to discuss FPL in a quick turnaround pod. And it's fair to say, in less than fine fettle after another poor one. Also been up since very, very early on my first day. So a lot of social energy has been expended. So hopefully I have to dig deep in some beers and hope for some energy to arrive. A short one for today. Should quickly mention right at the top. That you'll see in your podcast feed, an interview I did with the brilliant Gary at FPL Have a Beer recently. It's gone live on the FPL Journey and stuff. Do check that out if you have time at some point. I know there's been a lot of content out at the moment, but I just thought I'd put it up because Gary had put it up on his channel. But if you want to hear more about that, some stories you may have heard before if you've listened for a long time, and some new ones, the usual palaver. But hey, I suppose we better dip back into fantasy football as it is. And I'm joined yet again by Sam. I think it's fair to say a bit of a sad Sam this week.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Sometimes FPL and life and all of that can sort of coincide and not give you the best of weeks. And the fact that it was during a work week as well, with all of the red arrows and the Saints battering, and you go into work the next day and both of your colleagues are Chelsea fans, and it's all just tough to deal with. But it is just a game at the end of the day, and football is, of course, also just a game. So there are bigger things in life to worry about. And we're going to have a lovely chat this evening as well. So hopefully come out of this in a much better mood, maybe with an extra goal or an assist if we're lucky during the live games. In the meantime, though, we are Who Got the Assist. On today's pod, due to the quick turnaround, like Tom mentioned, it is going to be a bit of a shorter one today, just the preview ahead of the weekend. Our reactions to the game week that's just been and gone, and obviously still kind of going on in the background right now, and possible early moves in the knee-jerk. And of course, we both took hits last week going into game week 14, so we'll be assessing that, whether we ourselves knee-jerked going into last game week and whether the outcomes versus the decisions, which one of those came out on top, and whether or not we may have made a mistake or two. Then, of course, we'll have a look at the best transfers, best captains, and bold claims ahead of game week 15. It's Thursday, the 5th of December. I'm starting to feel a bit Christmassy, Tom. There's live games going on in the background during midweek. That's always a good sign. Fulham, Brighton, Bournemouth, Spurs are both playing out as we speak. Both have got players in both of those, I believe. So there could be some background noise going on at times if there's goals or assists going in. In the meantime, though, shall we have a look at the scores on the doors as it stands?
I suppose we better. So, yes, it's not been the best week for either of us. Sam, how are you doing?
Yeah. This season just keeps kicking me. It's like that Simpsons meme, like stop, he's already dead. It just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. I brought in, laughably, Jackson straight after the pod with you, and did it live on screen with you just for a bit of a laugh for Isaac, who I believed to be injured at the time. More on that later. And brought in Saka for Mbermo. Now, the one thing I really wanted to make sure I did was bring in Saka no matter what. I needed to create funds elsewhere with a hit, no matter what, in order to do so straight from Mbermo. I chose Isaac thinking that, okay, I need a strong playing 8 with rotation bound to strike in the midweek and over the next couple of weeks. So I need to shore up my 15, shore up my strongest 11. Isaac was the injury risk. So I thought, okay, makes sense. Just get him out, can move some money about to get in. Very safe bet Jackson, who's been on fire. Great data, starting all the matches. It's all just so safe and so simple, Tom. I don't know what could possibly go wrong.
No, definitely not.
Of course. So as it happens, Jackson gets his rest in midweek, which, maybe should have seen coming a little bit, but I don't think it was necessarily the most obvious of things to have happened. Saka obviously blanked. I captained Palmer against Southampton. I would still hold that is the correct decision based on both the way the match panned out, exactly as I expected it to. We even had the man sent off as well. We conceded the most XG in a match for an away game, I believe, in Premier League history. So it was definitely a match there for points to be had. And Palmer, saying Jackson already, Palmer got over 1 XG in the match as well. So a little bit unfortunate not to get more. Salah, of course, goes and gets a mega haul again. So he hurt me despite being in my team. Elsewhere, I was lucky, and I will say that Rodgers came off my bench with an 8-pointer. Raya got his clean sheet in goal. But just to round this off, because I don't want to go on forever, my back three, none of which have started, Lewis, Porro tonight, and Gabriel, all failed to start the matches. Lewis came off the bench. Greaves has come in for Gabriel, and Porro is up in the air as we speak. Who knows? But they're down at the moment, I believe. So he could come off the bench and maybe get his 1-pointer to block Hall's 1-pointer. 50 -4 at the moment. I think I've just got the Pedro assist come in as well. So it'll be 53 -4. So yeah, not great. Down to 1.7, 1.8 million. It really is about as bad as I've ever had it in FPL in a long, long time. So be interesting to see if I can turn it around from here.
Yeah, I'm sure we can. These were billed as the final hits we were going to be taking. But yeah, it's been pretty painful. Similar to you, we both kind of held hands and jumped into the breach, didn't we, really, at the end of the last pod? We'll talk about that in just a minute. Did Jackson for Isaac, and obviously, I mean, to be honest, 70 minutes for a Jackson, you just kind of thought, well, okay, that's fair enough. And is that we just didn't maybe could have left it, but I mean the prices were changing. Oh yeah, we'll talk about it in a sec. Saka for Bumo for me too, and then to facilitate all of that, I did Ahmad for Garnacho. So for -8, probably like 11, 12 points down on the deal, which is obviously a bit of a pain in the ass. But you got your Rodgers off the bench. I got Mikalenko off the bench for 11 points. It's the first clean sheet. I've benched 4 of them. So 4th time's a charm, getting him off the bench. Got a really just proper, like the definition of the classical FPL assist, block shot. But yeah, I mean, obviously I think I was due some bench jam this week. So I think I'm on. I've got Van Hecker, who's just gotten a yellow card. Cheers, mate. Brought him in for the X-Mins, and that's literally what I've got. Matoma and Solanke, who missed probably a quite serviceable chance just before I came on. Playing at the moment, I think this takes me to 60 -8, which is obviously not really that great. And yeah, I mean, you touched on Salah there. I don't know. You've got on one hand the underlying data in the 2 matches, and Salah's going to Salah. We know that he's just to get at least a golden assist onto infinity.
It is written,
but like I just wonder whether it was intentional that the effective ownership was so high, or did loads of people just forget the deadline? And have they been rewarded for under management a little bit? I kind of think that not everyone who intentionally captained Salah forgot the deadline, but I do think everyone who did forget the deadline did captain Salah. That's kind of the way I look at it.
That's a good summary. And also at our rank, especially mine down near 2 million now, I need to stop saying that, we'll lose viewers. But at 2 million, you would imagine there are a few teams that are maybe more casual managers. They don't necessarily make the transfers in midweek or know that there's a deadline. So maybe there is an element of they set their bus team for the weekend and didn't move it off of Salah. And that has also hurt me even more. And I think that is something that I need to maybe monitor at this rank at the moment, that I need to be wary of.
Yeah, no, I was surprised when I saw the effective ownership of Salah coming into it, and obviously it was just agonizing to see. I think Palmer another day, free assists, really, really good save by your man Lumley in the first half, and then thieving the goal. Yeah. Thanks, mate. And thieving the goal off of Nkunku.
Good lad.
You saw the Instagram post. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Just like it's paraphrasing, but sorry, Christo. My FPL managers needed that.
Yeah, we did.
I mean, on the plus side, at least we've kind of both got the kind of the triumvirate we've been talking up for a while, and they've been kind of building towards for a while. But I mean, I said that that game week 6 wildcard, when we come back to it at the end of the season, do our season review, that's going to, I feel like, be the pinpoint for where it all started to go wrong. And hopefully from this point, we will be able to recover it, because it has been, it's been pretty punishing the last few weeks. I'm doing my usual sort of tursling a little bit about FPL, just being kind of, like I said, again, I'm just going into this week, especially with the big hit, just kind of expecting a red, so it's not kind of been as awful for me. Just having, well, probably gonna get a red this week, so I'll just kind of take it as it comes. But yeah, I'm hopeful from this point onwards that things are going to improve. Hopeful. Really quick pod today, really, and just because it's only going to be in the ether for about an hour, about a day. So skipping straight to the Gameweek preview, which is obviously the kneejerk, the best transfers, bold claims, and the best captain per week. The first thing is the kneejerk, and I think that, as with last week, we should do a bit of a retrospective on the kneejerk, as well as kind of discussing what the moves are that come to people's mind. Did we kneejerk with it, Isaac? Did we overmanage? So overmanagement, something that long-term listeners to the pod will know. I've spoken about for many years. I think it was first season of FPL when I sold Salah to try to move up some transfers, and I really shouldn't have, again in this particular period. So always this midweek for the last kind of 8 years has always been the one which has tripped me up. And how have I not learned, basically, from the bruising past experiences? I will never know. I mean, I don't know. In retrospect, Sam, we could both look at our moves, both look at our teams and think, was there a world where maybe both of us should have taken a step back and gone, hold on a minute, maybe we should just let the midweek game week be, and then sort it all out kind of afterwards, once no lie of the land, because rotation is going to hit. We both knew that from our prior experience. So should we have just used that experience a little bit more and lent on that a bit more?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely an argument to say we should have, because of the outcome. At the end of the day, we are results driven in FPL, so the outcome suggests that we did make a mistake. In terms of the information we had available to us at the time, yes, we knew that rotation could happen, but until it happens, you don't know who will be subject to it. And I didn't honestly massively expect Jackson to get rotated, given the fact he'd come off at 70 minutes in the week before, or in the game week before. Isak was the injury doubt. So to me, it made fairly logical sense when I made the move. I think the only thing I do regret is maybe not waiting a little bit longer before making it. One way or another, I needed to take a hit if I wanted to bring Saka. Obviously Saka didn't get a return, so again, possibly a mistake, but I was pretty convinced that long term that I wanted the triple up of those premium midfielders. So I don't put that down as a mistake. I think it's just the way I built the hit to structure it in order to get to Saka could arguably be a mistake, in the sense that I forced selling Isak when it was up in the air. I did have Rodgers on my bench if I needed him, and if Isak was indeed a doubt, I could have lent on Rodgers instead. Overall, there weren't that many other options I could have taken to get to Saka. It was selling one of Solanke, Isak, or possibly Lewis in the back line, but the options that were available to me under Lewis's price, not many of which were really screaming out to me, and barely any of which got any points anyway. So I don't think I would have been much better off no matter where I went. Obviously, the key regret here is Isak ended up being fit, got the goal, got the assist, but more importantly than both of those things, he's got a great set of fixtures over the next 3 game weeks, and I now kind of wish I did just have him for those 3. So that's where the regret lies for me. I think in terms of the information that was available to me when I made the moves, it made relative sense. I don't think I could have foreseen Jackson being benched at that exact time when we did make the moves, but I could have waited a little bit longer and maybe tried to weigh up that move a little bit later on in the preview for the game week.
Yeah. I just, what kind of slapped me in the face a little bit was just when in the international break, we were talking about our rules, weren't we? And then last week we also discussed it. The power of 1 game week. Kind of that Southampton game was a massive carrot, but I just keep coming back to, obviously you can blame yourself and give yourself a hard time about this and beat yourself up, but I just don't know in what world we would have thought, oh yeah, okay, Jackson's got 4 yellows, we know that. Taken off at 70 on the weekend against Villa. So you were thinking, well, I mean, okay, if there was a game that Mr. Nkunku was going to play, it's probably going to be that. I don't know, maybe we should have been more cautious. But equally, that was the way that I was getting to Saka. And there was a world, as I said last week, where I did Bumo and Garnacho to 4.5, so like dibbling or something, and Saka, and left Isaac. And obviously I'll be massively up, because then I was saying last week, I'm not sure about having Mikalenko versus Cunha, and obviously in the cold light of hindsight, that would have been the ideal thing to do. But I suppose you do get weeks like this every now and again. It's just that there's only so many weeks like this you can have before the season then becomes like a major salvage operation, which is what we're both to different extents staring at now. And yeah, as you said right at the top, it will be interesting to see how the second half plays out, and whether the play style, because I don't know whether you can, I think we've spoken about this quite a lot in the past, whether the play style really suits playing in perhaps quite a template way if you're in that situation. And I think that's going to have maybe a bit of a bearing on that. The saving grace, of course, was that Isaac's EO, because there was a mass sell-off last week, wasn't as punishing as it could have been.
For sure.
Very, very small saving grace though, Sam.
It is. And yeah, look, he's a phenomenal player, good data in a team where he is very much the talisman. So it is obviously worrying to go without him when you already had him and binned him for a hit. But overall, one way or another, I needed the money. So I do still actually weirdly quite like the fact I've got Jackson in my team, despite the fact he got no minutes against Southampton. The fixture run for a long, long time is very promising. The data's great. And he's now, I guess, if we're looking for a silver lining, had his rest. So he should be relatively safe for a little while. Now, obviously, if he got benched 2 weeks in a row, then it's a massive red flag. But I'd be very surprised if he didn't now start against Spurs. And until he gets his suspension, which will happen at some point, I would say that I've got myself a player that a lot of managers probably won't go towards now for multiple reasons, let alone just the suspension, but also the rotation risk too. So now we're so close to having just had the rotation. I think maybe for the next couple, we should be relatively safe.
Hopefully. I mean, I think kind of we were both in a state, and we shouldn't, it's probably never a good thing that we're both kind of in a similar situation, but hey ho, I mean, that's just probably a potential sort of symptom of the fact we both speak about this on the podcast together, and especially in this compressed period where, and I think kind of it's just the general sort of the way that has been sort of not as like laid out by other people that we listen to or shows that we watch, but I think we were both in the sort of move or mindset that, there was a plan that we had to get to no matter what. And I guess the hope is now that kind of just by dint of having successfully, but carried out that plan, regardless of the ups and downs, we can now move into a bit of a stage where we can avoid making loads of hits from now on. I say that, but of course there's going to be.
I really hope so,
isn't there? And there's a friend Joe from Fantasy Football Scout always used to say those hits are moreish. You take them, the more and more you take them, the closer and closer to the millions you go. So it has proved, unfortunately. But hey, I think sadly it's probably it would have been better to leave it for a week, and I think that's definitely something that we need to remember. Midweek or close compressed fixtures are coming up relatively soon again, 17, 18, 19 over Christmas. So maybe that's a learning to take out of this, a learning which I'm sure there's people who listen to this pod for a long time, just like, Tom, you're an idiot. You've said this for years, and here you are again making the same mistakes. Well, yeah, you're right. if that's you, yeah, I mean, it is maybe one of those where Dan I was speaking to earlier on FPL Gas said, I didn't take a hit just because I wanted to let the midweeks pay out, and I was just thinking, yeah, okay, that's a wise man, and we need to learn from that wisdom, really. But hey, here we go. Let's move onwards. So be a fairly quick pod this week. Best transfers in and out. I think a lot of the focus, so we're going to get a couple of questions earlier on, which I think we can just address in this, are mostly about the out. The games are still going on in the background, so there won't be too much going on that will surprise people. You know, the likes of Bumo still being sold. Haaland's obviously listing a lot of sales as well. Injured players like Konate being sold. Players who basically did points, Salah, Saka, Saliba, Watkins, Isaac, being brought in. Saka, I suppose, not hadn't done points, but I think people are just getting him anyway. So there are a few players in the kind of the template, or that have been in teams in and around the template that are on the chopping block for a lot of people. First question kind of on this, Kobaloy said, who do I rage out? And all of them is Lance, Tom, and Sam. Rory, Lewis, Bumo, Cunha. Which one of these guys are first up for the executioner? Yeah, I mean, there's starting with the defenders, because Sai FPL says also asks, wants to replace Mikalenko, who's now running into bad fixtures. Is Gomez worth it? I mean, Nori, Lewis. I think you own Lewis, don't you? Still.
Yeah,
and Mikalenko I've got. So, I mean, is it even worth moving his defenders on with defense being such a what show?
Yeah, there's limited defenders at that price point that I like the look of at all. I mean, Brighton were kind of on the menu. Obviously, you've brought in Van Hecker, Dunk possibly, but the defensive data is not great. The fixtures are good, but they do seem to be pretty capable of conceding in pretty much any match. Obviously, just conceded the second tonight. And Van Hecker went off, I think, at about 75 minutes as well, before the second goal went in. So you
got yellow card though.
You got the yellow card, so you didn't get a 0-pointer at least. But yeah, so like Brighton defenders aren't looking great at the moment. The fixtures are good, so you could back that. Same goes for Chelsea as well. Fixtures great, defensive data not amazing, but possibly will improve with better fixtures. Colwell's obviously in the mix at that price, but with those players, so with the centre backs from Brighton, with Colwell as well, you are basically just looking at 2 or 6. And it all relies on whether or not they keep a clean sheet. You might, in once in a blue moon, get yourself a goal from a set piece, but those are rare. So you really have to be sure of the defensive capabilities. Now, the one player that has been interesting to me and continues to be so far tonight is Kirkez. That does have good fixtures, not for as long as Chelsea or Brighton do. And Bournemouth historically haven't been an amazing defence, so it is one to monitor. But at the very least, he does have a bit more impressive attacking data. And there's just something to get excited about there, whereas with the others, there just isn't. I think, again, maybe a quick reminder, a quick recap of what we said the other week. With this busy period, having those reliable 90-minute men is great if they continue to get the 90 minutes. And until this week, everyone thought that Colwell was that player. And look what happened. So even the most reliable players do fall victim to this at times. So you can't ever have anything called a sure thing in FPL, but you could play the odds. You could go with the people that have historically got the 90 minutes, or you could try and chase a little bit more upside with Kirkez possibly. Yeah,
I think I had him either as an honourable mention or in the top 3 for the edge pieces part. Might have been an honourable mention. It's so horrible. I've still got Leif Davis from that horrendous game week 6 wildcard, and I'm obliged to play him again this weekend. Could get a point. It could get assist points. Don't think I'm ever going to see those, am I? I think the problem is that you've even got, for example, Fulham before this game week were 3rd for expected goals conceded, but the clean sheets haven't really been there. And Forest, it was there for a little while. They're in 4th. And then, you've got Bournemouth in the top 5, Spurs 6th. I mean, Villa, Everton. I mean, these are all teams that don't exactly spring to mind to me straight away as being kind of paragons of defensive virtue. And then you then look at, Sai asked about Gomez, 4.8. I mean, could be an option for the time being while you're looking at absences for Konate for an indeterminate period, Bradley for an indeterminate period. And then, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I'm having a look at maybe in a couple of weeks looking at maybe Van Dijk or Trent coming back.
Same.
So
Yeah.
I mean that's kind of where I'm looking at the moment. But for me, I look at it more and more, and I just think defense is so low priority now. It's only if I need to free up whatever it is. I've got double Arsenal defense. We both do. That's kind of what I kind of wanted, and indeed that's what I kept from the game week 6 bloody wildcards, and I've gotten through all the crap with it and finally started to get some semblance of reward. Although last week it was Gabriel, this week it's Raya. So I just think defense deprioritize, model through of what you got until someone really puts their hands up. It might be Kirkez, with the goal against Wolves, and then a decent performance from what I saw in the first kind of half an hour tonight, as you kind of rightly highlight, Sam. But it might be we kind of have a flight to quality or a flight to safety with someone like a Van Dijk or a Trent, who will end up kind of coming back. But obviously, there's with Palmer, Salah, and Saka in teams. Where's the money come from?
Yeah,
that's probably going to be a Jackson. It might be, just to move us on to the other player who was mentioned by Kobler. We'll come back to midfield in a minute, but Cunha, if you do own him, he may be a player that maybe you'd be thinking now. I mean, obviously, love what the guy's done for me, not going to lie. But also, last couple of games, it's obviously massively disappointing. Low XGI, and those kind of low XGIs, which were converting into points via worldies and all sorts, have kind of coincided with Wolves really collapsing, I would say. I feel like with him, it's very difficult to sell still with West Ham, Ipswich and Leicester. But after that, I mean, went into it eyes wide open that he would be, as we kind of discussed a few weeks back, an edge piece that won't be staying in my team for forever. And it won't, if he'd have kept it up, then maybe I'd have been looking at it as a really difficult sell. And indeed, it may be that in the in the harder fixtures, that maybe that's where he flourishes, and he kind of just had a couple of kind of moments of wonder against teams like Southampton and Fulham. But I think he will kind of easily be that player after game week 17 in that Leicester game, where I kind of look at it and think, maybe that's where I make a bit of money. But I'm not sure, Kobler, whether I'd be selling him. I'd definitely be looking maybe at selling Bumo. We'll come on to that in a second. But I mean, Cunha, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I still really like him as a pick for the next 3. The fixtures are still there. The data last 2 hasn't been great, but across the season, he's been fantastic. One of their, well, in fact, definitely their standout player. And if they're scoring any goals in the next 3, which you'd imagine against those opponents they will, he's very likely to be a part of that. So yeah, I'm actually still very scared of him as a non-owner. And I think almost I invite people to sell him, because the lower the ownership, the less scared I'll be. But generally speaking, he's got everything going for him that I would want in a fancy asset when the fixtures are good. But the data isn't good enough to hold on to him, I don't think, for the entire season when the fixtures turn. So next 3, absolutely fine. I definitely wouldn't be selling him. Okay, he hasn't returned in the last couple, but no player at 7 million, barring, let's say, Palmer last season or under, of course, returns every single game week. These are players that do tend to go hot, cold, have maybe a couple of weeks without anything, and then maybe 2 returns in one game week. I think we're very much par for the course with Cunha in the last few. And yeah, next 3, great fixtures. So I definitely wouldn't be selling him. And in fact, if you're looking for a striker short term, he might still be one of the top ones.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty happy to. He's obviously not as invulnerable as he was before,
sure,
but he's certainly one that I'd be looking. And plus, where am I going to go? I think the only place I want to go is upwards. So I probably only want to get like potentially Watkins if we think that he's going to be playing this weekend, which looks like he might do. Evan Nilsson, Dan's man, maybe another one. With the kind of longish term, I think I definitely have looked at that as an option from game week 18. They run to Palace home, Fulham away, Everton at home, and then kind of a few tougher fixtures. So that'll be another sort of short term jump. Or it might be that he ends up kind of going all the way down to João Pedro, and then I try to find the money. It just feels like there's a lot of options on the like when you're window shopping for forwards, it seems like there's always been a lot of options, and there have been a lot of options all season. But when you go into the store to look at the forwards, the shelves are bare effectively, or you take one home, doesn't really work. I may be saying that as a pissed off Jackson buyer, and as a slanky buyer for that bloody Ipswich game when I captained him as well. But yeah, it has been quite a torrid time, despite there being lots of really good options ostensibly on the table. That's for sure. And finally, Bumo. I mean, not really. Kind of, I did see kind of your usual sort of fare on the FPL socials. The Bumo haul is going to hit different. Oh, you're all idiots for selling, as we kind of. Obviously, I understand where that came from. I know that people are saying that kind of tongue in cheek. I mean, he did have a good game. Did look pretty lively. Didn't take a shot again. Couple of, I think, had created a chance or two. But yeah, quite a lot of it was him kind of situated out on the wing once more. So I do think there's ample sort of opportunity now to sell him on, and that's reflected in the market data. And the likes of Bowen, who was very unlucky not to return. Matoma could have got an assist if Adingra sorted himself out earlier on. So I mean, I think there's probably quite a few options kind of hanging around, and Semenyo as well at Bournemouth. So it's not you're not bereft of options, I guess, if you're moving Bumo on. Then it might just be the case that you kind of take that profit, or as we said last week, just leave him, and that's absolutely fine too if you've got other fish to fry. The Ipswich game up next is obviously not one where you'd be looking at it. Oh, sorry, not the Ipswich game, the Newcastle game up next. You've just conceded 3, and Brentford being quite good at scoring goals at home. That's probably not one you'd be looking at thinking, oh yeah, I need to sell that guy.
Yeah, agreed. And on the case for holding on to Mbeumo, whilst the fixtures on paper don't look great, I was actually pretty surprised they still went with the 3 up top. So I think a system change will probably come pretty soon, considering how they played against Villa. And if the system change does come against the tougher opponents, Newcastle being first up, I would imagine Mbeumo plays more centrally, gets more shots on goal, gets more chances. So again, like at his price, he's on penalties. He's a 90-minute man pretty much every single week. I think he's never going to be a bad hold. It's just what you can do with the money and what you can do with that spot in midfield, because 5 spots in midfield doesn't feel like a lot at the moment. There's a lot of different players putting their hands up, especially expensive ones, saying we're much better picks than Mbeumo right now. So I understand people selling him. We've done so ourselves. If you can find a way to squeeze him in and keep him, then I don't think he's a bad hold. I don't think any Brentford forward-thinking player is a terrible hold, considering the way they like to play football and structure themselves against even the bigger teams.
Yeah, and it just strikes me, and I hope this is a positive thing, that apart from maybe Watkins, a lot of the kind of the buys in are players that I've considered, and looking at the kind of the bus teams we'll get to in a minute, I look at that and think, oh, I'm actually pretty happy with my team now. I mean, yeah, there's always kind of some shuffling around of edge pieces I could do if I had a wild card, but I'm broadly pretty happy with where my team is after all of that. So yeah, I think we're kind of obviously after the most recent rough and tumble, pretty keen on rolling this one over. I think that will be it, unless we kind of get to tomorrow's glut of press conferences in here. There's a big problem with player X, or I mean, even if someone like Gabriel, who missed the game obviously last night, isn't around, I suspect he would be another player that we just hold and let whoever comes off the bench come off the bench, just kind of let that happen. So yeah, it may be a week where, yes, okay, there's a kind of initial action, as I just detailed a minute ago, but it might be a week that most people kind of just think, you know what, I'm just going to just hold fast, hold tight, and just leave it for this week. Because I think that's kind of quite a logical thing to do, especially given the the chaos that we've had this midweek, which I've actually really enjoyed. I'm not going to lie. It's always really good to see, even if you're not, even if you're a victim of the chaos, it's always good to see that chaos just kind of happen, just because it's always fun, isn't it? So to watch this world burn, not the overall world, which is obviously quite sad. Right, okay. Anything else to add on the transfers out?
No, not particularly. I think in terms of transfers that we're looking at ourselves, we'll talk about them a little bit later on. But yeah, I think I think we'll see a relatively quiet week transfer-wise across the board, not just because people are forgetting, but also because people took quite a few hits going into game week 14 and probably are looking at this week as a consolidation kind of game week ahead, or at least that's the hope.
Cool. All right. So bold claims, obviously quite a lot still going on. I think I'm going to give myself a no for this one too. But yeah, you were definitely a no.
Yeah, definitely a no. I was surprised not to see Brentford go to the 3-5-2 formation they tend to go for against stronger sides. I did think Mbeumo would benefit from that if they did change the system against what was, until now, a relatively struggling Villa side. So no Mbeumo Hall for me, but it's still 2-2, and it doesn't look like you're getting the point either.
No, it did start off at breakneck speed, and I was thinking, I'm definitely going to be getting this. By the time you're on the pod, there's going to be 3 or 4 goals in this. My bold claim for this week was Spurs. Bournemouth was going to be a really open, exciting game, and you're going to see kind of 5 plus goals. Not quite happened, unfortunately. Did wince through Solanke. Doing the slanky, unfortunately, and missing quite a good chance early on. It wasn't a big chance or anything, but it was just one of those chances you're like, oh, Christ. But yeah, it seems like just by looking at the socials just a second ago, that a lot of the Spurs fans are a bit annoyed that they aren't testing Kepa more. We've got a lot of possession, but doesn't seem to be doing very much with it.
Yeah, 0.26 XG so far in the match.
Yikes.
Not great.
Hope Solanke gets a tap in later on, which can hopefully not
From
Sky. Yeah, if Porro does come on, that is.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
No, I'm hoping for it for you, man. Seriously, I mean, it's just anything you can get this week. At one point as a haul, isn't it?
Pretty much.
Yeah. All right, and for the weekend.
Yes, for the weekend ahead, I'm captaining Salah almost certainly. Although there are some storm risks in Liverpool at the moment ahead of the weekend, so one to keep an eye on, I think. Oh, sorry, have we gone across to best captain, or are we looking at bold claim first? There we go.
Yep.
Sorry. In terms of bold claim, I'm going with the Salah blank. Just because he's been on such a hot streak for so long, it has to come to an end at some point. I will be captaining him almost certainly. So it is about time that he probably now goes and blanks away at Everton. So yeah, that's my bold claim for this week.
Can we let you have that if the game is called off due to an accident?
No. Oh well. We'll run it through the necessary tests.
Yeah,
we'll see.
The Forest test allows it. I'm not sure whether I can give you whether I'll let you have that. Maybe you can have half a goal. You have a 2.5 or something like that, just out of sympathy.
Or a free second punt of some sort.
Yeah, maybe you get by or something like that for a week.
Yeah.
Your bold claim's basically invalid. Mine is max 2 clean sheets. The team's going to be knackered, defense is going to be knackered, and there will be goals aplenty. Nice and simple for the bold claim this week. And reflecting what we were just saying about wind, the best captain for the week ahead. So 37-mile-an-hour winds on Saturday on Merseyside is being forecast. So a friend of the pod, General Zod on Blue Sky, saying he's an Everton fan, saying he was expecting not to have a game to go to. So make sure you've got those vices set, people. But yeah, I mean, it's I'm going to probably do the same, probably captain Salah. I guess the vice will come into play, and the vice is on Saka this week. Worth saying that probably again, as per every week, that Haaland is in existence away against Crystal Palace does seem, if you own him still now, the week to do it. And there's obviously kind of the Spurs potential goal fest. So we're not seeing that at the moment. There's always the potential for one of those games to become a very testy game with lots of goals in either end. So that could be a good option to go into if you did fancy kind of Cole Palmer or maybe even Nicholas Jackson, who I'm sure will be playing as your captain for the week ahead. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of options on the table, aren't there?
Yeah, it all circles generally around those 4 premiums yet again. I think that'll be a common theme over the next few game weeks. But yeah, Salah's my bus team captain. If I need to rely on anyone else, at the moment I've got it the vice captaincy on Palmer. I do fancy goals in that game. I think Chelsea have looked really thoroughly impressive over the last few game weeks, and whilst Palmer has also looked impressive, I think he's been a little bit unfortunate not to get quite as many attacking returns as he could have gotten, especially in the Southampton game. And I think Spurs, again, it will be a fairly open game. Obviously, they're missing their first choice centre backs. I think that eventually will catch up with them a little bit. So yeah, Palmer would be my vice at the moment, but I really don't mind any of these 4 whatsoever. And Salah is the standout pick, just based on the fact that he is the most inevitable man in the universe right now.
Yeah, I've definitely saw a few tweets and posts just being like, well, we've kind of reached the stage now where it's just too dangerous not to captain Salah. Like maybe this is the last point for an awfully long while. Maybe kind of game week, is it game week 18, isn't it, where Haaland's fixtures do kind of turn a little bit. But even then, the other 3 have got good fixtures over Christmas, so it's not a cut and dried that we're running back to him. But as RORs, Sam, there may be an argument to kind of think about doing that. But yeah, for the near term, it's just self-destructive to not captain Salah at the moment. Highest owned player, highest scoring player, obviously by some distance after an 18-point haul against Newcastle. So yeah, I think it's probably a cut and dry for most people. But get those vices set this week and really have a think about it. That's probably a good argument actually to maybe just put it on Palmer for me. Come to think of it,
yeah. So with that in mind, let's take a look at bus teams as well. So mine is on screen at the moment, starting with the double Arsenal defence. So Raya and Gabriel against Fulham, who have just put 3 past Brighton. So not feeling too great about that. Gabriel is a doubt ahead of the weekend, but I do have Hall and Greaves both now on my bench, looking like players that could come in if needed. Porro and Lewis have both had rests in midweek. So Porro almost certainly comes back in, you'd think. Lewis, I would say, is probably a 70-80% chance he does. And if he does start, Crystal Palace is a decent game to start him in. In the midfield, it's that triple premium, as I mentioned. Salah, Saka, Palmer. Very happy with that for the long term. Semenyo away at Ipswich. It would be good if he could finally actually do something, because despite looking good, hasn't really gotten any points for me so far. And up front, Solanke, Pedro and Jackson, with Rodgers against Southampton at home currently on the bench, just because I've got a sneaky suspicion that he gets a benching himself. But I'm really open to suggestions who you would bench here ahead of him, because I would love to start him, of course. And if he does play against Southampton, that's a great fixture to have. But any player that I'm looking at potentially even thinking about benching him for, most of them are on penalties and with much better data than him and with less chance of a benching. So yeah, puzzle me that one. Can you figure that one out?
Nope, go for sneaky. I think all of your players there are more than worthy of playing. This is why I really don't like having decisions to make, because you're going to be staring at bench points.
I'm glad I had it this week though.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. And you probably are going to win both ways. To be honest, Porro's just come on, Sam. Here we go.
Yes, whole 30 minutes.
Yeah. Brilliant stuff. So yeah, hopefully after we finish this, I'll go and sit down and watch. And then I don't know, has Lanky been subbed off? Is the question.
No, not yet. But that it can't be. Well, I don't know. Mine hasn't reloaded to say Porro's on yet, so maybe. I don't know.
Depressing. No, so Dave has come off, which is good. Okay, and Sar's come off, so we're all right. But yeah, I think. I mean, there's players like Buendia is back fit, and I think that it could be the time, as we saw demonstrated beautifully by Maresca, that the Southampton game may be a game that teams are looking at and thinking, oh, you know what? Okay, let's get the let's give the kids a run out. With the greatest respect, I'm afraid, Sam.
Well, I mean, look, we had a lot of suspensions in the last game, so I think that was always going to be an absolute annihilation, and having a man sent off obviously makes it even worse. Against Villa, it's like, of course, we're going to be the weaker side of the two, but we will have most of our back line back. We'll have Downs back, which is massive, and Dibbling back to ball carry a little bit more. So I don't think it will be quite the bloodbath that it was against Chelsea. So whilst it's a good fixture, don't get me wrong, I don't really buy into the idea that you must buy Watkins, you must start Rodgers, you must do this, that, and the other because it's Southampton. I think we will be a little bit stronger now with those players back.
Fair play. On that point about Palmer being the vice, Davis has gone off injured rather than being sub for tactical reasons. So Archie Gray is now a centre back. So yeah, Gray Trackerson. Yeah, so that could be something which is worth bearing in mind. Although yeah, too much of a risk potentially not to captain Salah. But yeah, if you've got the appetite for it, fair play. Yep. For me this week, also rolling. Just finally rolling.
Yeah.
I may even get, Sam, that there's a possibility. Let's not get too excited. There's a possibility that I could get beyond 2 free transfers for the first time this season. I'm crossing my
finger for that as well.
I think there may be a chance that I don't have to do a transfer according to my FPL.team. I don't have to do a transfer until kind of game week 18. So there may be a time. Am I ever going to stick to that? Absolutely bloody no. I'm going to get 2 free transfers next week and be like, right, rub my hands together. What can I possibly do here
to make things worse?
Oh, Christ, yeah. That'll be the week that I go, yeah, you know what? I just Slanky versus Liverpool. I just don't fancy him, mate. I just don't fancy him. Get rid of him. Then he goes on to do what Izzat did against Liverpool. So, yeah, all looking pretty rosy in the garden, apart from having to play the twin heads of incompetence and uselessness at the back in Davis and Van Hecker. Gabriel, obviously, I'm going to start him, and if not, Lewis Hall comes off the bench and just cross my fingers. I've got a sneaky suspicion that Matoma played the full 90 tonight again. Big carry and knock. Hopefully that he's just going to kind of keep going. They've got the Sunday game, so hopefully that'll be right against Leicester. But if not, I've got Ahmad coming off the bench, who came on at half time for Malacia. United fans think that he'll probably play that Forest game. That's why he's there, really. That's why I spent a little bit more on a player like him over someone like Dibbling in the end. Selling Izzak, all worth it because I've got Ahmad. Hopefully, I'll be saying that in less jocular tones and more celebratory tones next Monday. Apart from that, team is as it is. Hoping that for a better outcome, really. But it's a very sort of a templated sort of period, isn't it? But hey, there you go. A very short pod this week by our standards, but I think that's kind of all you can really expect around a midweek, especially one where we're both quite low energy for different reasons. Hopefully it didn't come through too much. But yes, I'm very, very tired.
Yeah, knackered. I was up at, I think, 4 a.m. this morning. I think you were fairly similar. So it's a bit of a long one.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, there you go. But yeah, I hope you had a great first day at work, Tom. It's been great chatting to you, and I'm definitely in a cheerier mood than I was at the start. Even if the points aren't really flowing in FPL at the moment, it's still always good to have a bit of a laugh. And make a bit of fun of it as well. So yeah, good to chat. And hopefully if you've been listening in as well, you've also enjoyed our misery, perhaps, but also the chat as well, more likely, I hope. In the meantime, thank you so much for listening. We have been Who Got the Assist. You can find us on Blue Sky at WGTA or myself at FPL Pricey. On Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, it's WGTA_FPL. Again, I'm FPL Pricey on there. And Instagram or Threads, it's WGTA.FPL. And I'm FPL Pricey on there as well. If you could follow us on the socials, but also give the pod a 5-star rating wherever you're listening. Or, of course, if you could leave a like or subscribe if you did enjoy what we've put on today, then, of course, you won't miss out on any future content. And it really does help us out in the process.
Yes, indeed. Please go ahead and do those things. Thanks, Sam. Hope you enjoyed Who Got the Schadenfreude tonight. We hope we assisted you looking at the weekend ahead. We'll be back on Monday as usual for usual service. And yeah, speak to you very soon. Have a good weekend. And all the best for the weekend ahead.
Oh, it's a goal. Who got the assist? Who got the assist?